Hey everyone, Shane here for episode 9 of SIFTD HQ, our pretty much brand new show that we produce 100% in our studio in West Los Angeles, California. This episode's a little different. We have a brand new segment in this week's show that strays a little bit outside of what we usually cover, so I'm interested to get your feedback. That's what this show is all about. We're going to try a bunch of new stuff. If you don't like it, let us know, and we'll move on and do something different. So I'm excited to get your feedback, but first, you got to watch it.
Noobs is here to bring you the best newly announced games of the week. Civilization is the leader of the 4X strategy genre, and Old World is being created by one of its former developers. That makes it worth a look all on its own. Like most games of this ilk, you play as a leader who must grow his or her empire. Their traditional turn-based structure has been replaced by a more free-flowing system, and there's over 1,000 different events that have consequences. Take your place at the side of the king this summer on PC. Codemasters is known as one of the premier racing game studios. It's at it again with F1 2020. Last year's game was our driving game of the year, so expectations are pretty high. Updates include all the official teams, drivers, and circuits from F1. There's even a new steering assist to make this challenging franchise a bit more accessible. Pull up to the starting grid on July 10th on any major platform but Switch. Superhot was one of the best-selling games for VR. Dodging slow-motion bullets like Neo from the Matrix is on our bucket lists, so we can see why. Blastin' is taking the concept in a different direction. This gun dueling game has simple rules. Shoot the opponent standing across from you. Duck, dodge, or do anything else to avoid incoming shrapnel. Unfortunately, that's all we know for now, but new details will be coming as its fall 2020 release date draws near. It's coming to all major VR HMDs. It's almost been 4 years since XCOM 2 was released. Since then, the turn-based strategy genre has absolutely exploded. We're getting a version of Gears of War for God's sake. The masters of the style return with XCOM Chimera Squad. You play as a special squad of human and alien agents whose sole goal is to destroy the underground threats, sending the city into disarray. Each of the 11 agents have their own abilities and unique personalities. There's also a new breach option where you assign agents to enter at different positions of a structure to take down the enemy from all sides. The turn order has also been tweaked, but you don't have to wait long for your turn at this game as it launches Thursday for PC.
Hey there, welcome to Shane's Shit List, where I find things that piss me off and I take them to task. In the prior 2 episodes, I tackled the coronavirus and ISPs. This week, I'm casting a much wider net to tackle late-stage capitalism. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate the idea of capitalism itself. I'm not calling for massive governmental change, and I believe those who work hard and have amazing ideas should be justly compensated for it. But I also think what some people often forget is that taxation is a part of capitalism. It's not some wacky socialist ideation. As long as we've had a capitalist government, we've had taxes. Capitalism is also not supposed to be a rich-get-richer scheme. There's supposed to be some correlation and balance between financial success and how much a company or person contributes to society as a whole. What we've seen with the coronavirus recession and the recession of 2008 is that this simply is not the case. Back in 2008, taxpayers bailed out a multitude of industries that had been enjoying record financial success just prior. Instead of banking or investing money for a rainy day, they gave it all to stockholders, which meant we were left to pick up the tab. The same damn thing is happening with the coronavirus recession. We were turned down for both of the small business relief loans that we applied for. Now, we have a handful of employees, so we definitely fit the bill for a small business. So, where the hell did all the money go? It went to big business in massive chunks. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse is the company that has received the most ire, but there are literally hundreds of large companies that have siphoned off large percentages of the relief budget. Shake Shack was one of them, but after it saw the pushback on social media, it returned the $10 million it was given, which means it never really needed it in the first place. Ruth's Chris got a whopping $30 million. Meanwhile, we're asking for just a couple $1,000s just so our business can survive. This too-big-to-fail mentality keeps stinging taxpayers. We've bailed out the airline and automotive industries before, and we're about to do it again. But at least those are essential businesses that keep our society going. Chain restaurants? Not so much. When one closes, 5 more open. And if capitalism is truly economic Darwinism, these massively successful companies that have not prepared for rainy days should perhaps just go away. Bruce Chris turned a 40+ million profit just last year. Would anyone be angry if Ticketmaster went out of business to be replaced by something far better? That's capitalism, not this corporate welfare program we've been participating in. The bottom line is that our form of capitalism is failing. When the richest country in the world goes down the tubes after 30 days of lockdown, something is wrong. And what's wrong is that whether you're a small business or a private citizen, your chances of ascending are minimal at best. When most Americans don't have enough savings to pay rent for the next 2 months, is our form of capitalism really working for most of us? Our economic system is also putting the stranglehold on video games. According to Naughty Dog, The Last of Us Part 2 is basically complete. Yet, it delayed the game's release indefinitely because it's afraid it won't make as much money as possible due to the coronavirus. In a perfect world, the game is released as scheduled, still sells very well, but needs a couple extra months to reach its zenith. Our form of capitalism doesn't allow that, though. With investors counting on big sales from big products right out of the gate, Sony is left with little choice but to delay it. Again, I'm not calling for socialist regime change, I'm just asking for some common sense. When so much money is at the top, it pretty much hurts all of us. So when our form of capitalism took away my most anticipated video game, well, that was the breaking point. So late stage capitalism, you just made Shane's shit list.
It's Turned Up Tuesday, where we pick the new games, albums, movies, and TV shows that should be on your radar this week. Though some notable games have released, there are still some games worth checking out. If you're looking for a game to get you by until Cyberpunk 2077 launches in September, Cloudpunk is worth a look. You play as a delivery driver enduring one crazy first day on the job. You just deliver the packages, just don't dare ask what's inside. Corporate conspiracies abound on Thursday when it launches for PC with console versions to follow later this year. There aren't that many crotch rocket racing sims, but that's okay because MotoGP is released every year without fail. It's back with MotoGP 20, featuring drastically updated visuals, extensive rider customization, improved AI that reacts to how you ride, and fully licensed seasons. Grip it and rip it on Thursday for every major platform, including Stadia. The original Trials of Mana was released last year in the West, and now we can play a ground-up remake on Friday. The visuals are like night and day, but there are also dynamic quest changes based on your protagonist and companions. New character types, new tracks added to the score, and much more. This JRPG is in a tough spot launching so close to Final Fantasy VII, but it does release for all platforms on Friday instead of just one, which should help. With everyone being home due to COVID-19, multiplayer gaming is something many use to socialize. Prepare to get real gabby when Predator Hunting Grounds launches Friday for PS4 and PC. This 4 vs 1 asymmetrical shooter has a fire team pitted against a dangerous predator, so teamwork is essential. The Predator is elusive, so you're going to need every gun locked and loaded, and a headset. The flow of new albums continues its steady stream this week, and we have several recommendations. Braids' new album Shadow Offering proves you don't need fancy expensive gear to make catchy pop music. Its Casio-like tones will take you back to the 80s in the best ways possible. It's not quite electro, but it certainly skirts the edge. So if you're a fan of synth pop from that decade, it's worth checking out this Friday. Right now, we all need some new music to chill to, and that's where AWOL Nations' new album, Angel Miners and the Lightning Riders, comes in. Its downbeat electronic sound provides the perfect soundtrack as you walk to look out the window for the 20th time. The BPMs are low, and your heart rate will be the same after giving it a listen on Friday. If you're looking for something more off the beaten path, Other Lives' music truly defies description. Caught somewhere between world music and indie, their songs sound like they could have been made hundreds of years ago, but you only have to wait until Friday for their new album, For Their Love. We're not the world's biggest country western fans, but Willie Nelson transcends the genre, and he's releasing his 70th, that's right, his 70th album this Friday. Called First Rose of Spring, it's exactly what you expect. Emotional love songs flooded with acoustic and steel guitars. New movies and TV shows are really drying up, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon. But we managed to find a couple picks. HBO is known for excellence in TV series, but its movie Bad Education is worth paying attention to. With a star-studded cast including Hugh Jackman, Allison Janney, and Ray Romano, it follows a true story of a school district that falls on hard times when an embezzlement scandal is exposed. Rumors are swirling that Hugh Jackman gives his best performance since The Prestige, so have some popcorn ready on Saturday night. Game of Thrones may have ended, but The Last Kingdom on Netflix is still going strong. Just like with HBO's Juggernaut, you can never get too attached to any of its characters because no one is ever safe. The plot centers around England repelling Norse invaders and a surprise that awaits among their ranks. It will undoubtedly be a bloody mess when 10 new episodes launch on Sunday for its 4th season. It leaves just enough time to binge the first 3.
Hi, I'm Shane Satterfield for SIFTD News, and welcome to The Big Six, the 6 biggest news stories in gaming for the week ending April 21st, 2020. Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't release until September 17th, but already the deluge of pre-release marketing is afoot. This week, 3 separate products were announced, including a themed Xbox One X console. Microsoft also announced a matching controller to go with it. Not to be outdone, SteelSeries announced a line of headsets that aligns with the brand. For the next 5 months, it's going to be Cyberpunk's world. We'll just live in it. Video game developers are breathing a sigh of relief. Kotaku's investigative reporter Jason Schreier has left the enthusiast site for a new position at Bloomberg. Schreier has written multiple scathing articles about work conditions at some of the industry's biggest studios, and it appears he will take that same angle at his new position. So maybe studios that aren't following best practices aren't quite out of the woods just yet. Schreier's last article for Kotaku detailed how Rockstar Games has actually changed its culture. But it also includes some of the first tidbits on Grand Theft Auto 6. It's been almost 7 years since GTA 5 was released, and Rockstar has yet to even acknowledge the existence of its sequel. However, Schreier reported in the same article that GTA 6 may be a smaller game at launch that grows over time. The article also states that it is still in early development, so don't expect it anytime soon. We've waited almost as long for the next Batman game from Warner Brothers. Arkham Knight is coming up on being 5 years old, and all we've received thus far are some teases from the WB Montreal studio. We did get some new info this week though. The next game in the Arkham series is indeed coming from the studio. It's a soft reboot that's connected to the Court of Owls organized crime group. The report from VG247 also states that the game is scheduled for release sometime later this year. The coronavirus continues to ravage the entertainment industry with cancellations. This week it was Gamescom 2020 and San Diego Comic-Con 2020's turn to cancel this year's shows. Scheduled for August and July respectively, Gamescom will instead wrangle a digital-only event around the same time. Comic-Con has been completely canceled, but next year's dates have already been set for July 22nd to the 25th, 2021. As the pandemic stretches on, we suspect that most remaining events for 2020 will suffer the same fate. The virus isn't just affecting person-to-person events. It could also impact the production of PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Bloomberg reported this week that there could be limited PlayStation 5 production output for the console's first year on the market. However, it claims Sony is limiting production because it will lose large amounts of money on each unit for at least its first year on the market. Sony has told its partners it plans to produce 5 to 6 million units before the end of March 2021. The moral of the story? Pre-order as quickly as possible. Alright, that's it for the 6 biggest news stories in gaming for the week ending April 21st, 2020. I'm Shane Satterfield, and I really need a haircut.
Hey guys, and welcome to Make It, where we make things in front of you for your viewing pleasure. And today we're gonna make meatloaf. We're in my kitchen right now. Cooking is something I enjoy and I've done for over the last 5 or 6 years and really have grown a passion for it. And so I found some amazing recipes, including a meatloaf recipe, because as a kid, meatloaf was not my favorite thing. But this recipe is one of my favorite things to make. I take it to all the gatherings I can, and I get nothing but great compliments about the meatloaf. So, I'm gonna show you how to make it, so let's do it. Alright, here are the ingredients we're gonna need to make the meatloaf. So we're gonna start out with 1 pound of ground beef, We have a chipotle barbecue sauce and ketchup. Now, you can use any kind of barbecue sauce if you want to make the sauce to go on top. I prefer chipotle because of the other ingredients that we have mixed in, or you also can just use fresh chipotle peppers and kind of grind those up and put ketchup with it as well. We also have our spices, and we're going to use that to make a rub for the meat. We have 2 cloves of garlic. We have some golden raisins. We have some panko crumbs, and we have a farm egg. Since we are going to bake this in the oven, you are going to need a baking pan, and I highly recommend that you use foil as well to put that on top of your baking pan. This is because we are going to use a sauce for this meatloaf, and when you cook it in the oven, it's going to render that sauce down, and it's going to save you tons of cleaning up. Also, I do recommend, and what I personally do, is I buy those foil baking pans by the bundle at the grocery store so I could use them on an individual basis, and that saves me even more time cleaning up. First thing we're going to do, since this is going to be cooked in the oven, is we want to set the oven right away to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we're going to peel and mace the garlic. A little tip is if you cut each end of the garlic, it actually helps peeling the garlic a little bit easier for you. And then macing it is basically cutting it into little bits. So that's what we're going to do with these 2 cloves of garlic. Then we're going to take the maced garlic and put it in a bowl. Now we're going to add golden raisins to the meatloaf. So we're going to take about 3 tablespoons of raisins and put them on our cutting board, and we're just going to cut them lightly. We don't want them finely chopped or maced like we did with the garlic. We just want more raisins for our buck to go into that meatloaf. So once we have all the golden raisins chopped up, we are going to put that in the same bowl as the garlic. We're also going to add to that bowl, we're going to add the panko breadcrumbs. So we're going to put about 1/3 of a cup of panko breadcrumbs in the same bowl as we have the garlic and the raisins. Those are all going to go together. So go ahead and we're going to dump those in. Now we're going to make our spice rub, which is going to be these 7 spice ingredients. We're going to use ground paprika, garlic powder, ground cinnamon, onion powder, cayenne chili, coriander, and cumin. So we're going to use all these ingredients. We're going to put them together in a bowl. I do it dispersed evenly. So we're going to put the same amount of each of these spices in that bowl. I put about 2 tablespoons, and I just put a little more than I need just in case so I don't underspice or not have enough spices to use for the meat, because I personally rather have meat overspiced than underspiced. Once we get those in a bowl, we're just going to mix them up just so it's dispersed evenly. You don't want too much garlic on one end of your meat. You want it all dispersed evenly. So just take a fork, whisk it nicely just to give it a little bit of spread, and you should see that color disbursement, and it should look all mixed up right. So that's what you want to go for. Now we're going to focus on our sauce. Now, when we put this sauce with the meatloaf in the oven, it's actually going to deglaze a little bit. It's actually going to render down, and that's what we want. So currently in the state of what the chipotle barbecue sauce or any barbecue sauce you want to use that you put on top of it, it's not thick enough. What it's going to do is it's render down too quickly, and it's not going to get you enough flavor in that meat. So that's where the ketchup comes in. The ketchup is an agent that we're going to use to thicken it up so that it's going to be able to last longer and take longer to render down so that more flavor goes into your meat. So you want to add more proportion of barbecue sauce than you do want to add of your ketchup. Your ketchup is just a thickening agent, so it shouldn't be 50-50 or even 25-75. You really should figure out what's best for you. I always recommend taste the sauce. You don't want it to taste like ketchup. So as you mix it, kind of taste it and see, do you need it thicker? Yes, go ahead and add more ketchup. But make sure you're tasting it so it doesn't taste like ketchup, because you still want that barbecue flavor to it. Now that we have all our ingredients prepped, now we can start to get to the real cooking. So go ahead and we can take the meat out, take the ground beef out of the packaging and put it in a bowl. And then this is where the egg is going to come in. This is what we call our binding agent. This is the first thing you're going to put into that mixture in that bowl with the ground beef, because we're going to mix a bunch of these ingredients together, and the egg is going to help bind those to the meat and help them kind of get inside there. So go ahead and crack an egg right in there. Then we are going to pour our ingredients of the garlic, the panko crumbs, and the raisins, that mixture is going to go in. Then you also can put in your spices and just go ahead and go to town. Make sure you've washed your hands first before doing this, but go ahead and take your hands and start melding the ingredients together, mixing it all up. Kind of don't rough up the ground beef too much because it's going to make it more difficult to cook, but at least start melding the ingredients together nice and lightly. You can pack it in a little bit, roll it, move it, grind it, make sure everything spreads out evenly. The more even you're going to have everything, all the spice rub, all the raisins, the better everything's going to taste in the end, I promise you. So just make sure you're melding everything together. It's okay to pull some of the meat apart and put it back together. Just do whatever you need to be able to knead all that ingredients together in that bowl. So go ahead and do that for a couple minutes and until it looks like it's all melded together. And once that's all good, you're ready to start forming your meatloaf. Now, here's some tricks you need to know when you're forming your meatloaf. The thicker in height, the taller it is, that means that's going to take longer to cook in the oven. Now, you want it to try to be as even as possible from each end to the other. It shouldn't have any ups and downs and valleys, or else you're going to have an uneven cook when you finish that meatloaf in the oven. So go ahead and try to make it as even as possible. A hint I've always learned is no higher than 10 inches. I try to just feel it out the best way I can and just making sure it's even, yet you do have that thickness on the top so that when you do each slice, you're gonna have a good amount of meatloaf that comes out. So go ahead and just form that the best way you can. It's not gonna be perfect. I promise you that right away. It's fine. If it's a little uneven, it's okay, but just do the best you can. We are almost done. All we have to do now is put that sauce on top so we can have that rendered down in the oven. So go ahead and take out that bowl with that mixture of that barbecue sauce and ketchup and go ahead and spread it all over the meatloaf. Now, for some people, they are more comfortable just only having a little bit of sauce on top. I absolutely love how it renders down personally, so I cover the entire meatloaf. If you're new to this recipe, I recommend doing an in-between. Just have it maybe cover the top of the meatloaf, and then if you really, really like it and you find it for next time, then go ahead and cover it like I do, but I just love covering it in it because once it's rendered down, it's almost like a glaze and it tastes so good. So I just prefer it that way. So I just cover all the way around, making sure it covers all sides, and if it touches the bottom of that pan, that's okay because it's gonna render down and cook the meat with it, and it might burn a little bit, but that's okay. It'll be just fine. Your oven should be preheated, so just pop it right on into the oven. I try to have it on the rack that's even, so you have the same amount of racks on the bottom and the same racks on top, so you have a nice even cook. That's gonna sit in the oven for about 20 to 23 minutes. And voila, there is your meatloaf. Now, one quick thing you do need to do, just give it a couple minutes. Let it sit for 2 minutes so it can finish its cook. Just because you took it out of the oven does not mean that meat is done cooking. We want it to be able to continue and finish that cooking process. So go ahead and take it out, and then you can start cutting into it just to see if you cooked it just right. If there's a tiny bit of pink, that is totally fine. It means you cooked it just right. The rest of it is cooked through perfectly. You don't want it to be super dry, so it is okay to be just a tiny bit pink. That is okay. If it is very pink and has an off texture, that is not cooked, and you need to put that back into the oven. You can definitely tell the difference between not cooked and cooked, so make sure you're looking very closely when you're looking at your proteins.
All right, that's it for SIFTD HQ episode 9. I told you there was something new in there. Our brand new segment, Make It. I really like the concept because we can make pretty much anything for you guys in there. And that's the idea with SIFTD HQ. You never know what you're going to get. So we'll see you next Tuesday when we'll roll the dice once again.